every age. It's not about color and it's not about separation anymore. It's more about that subtle underlying causes that really cause like learning in a prestigious institution.
There's like a line between racism, sexism, genderism, things like that, but people know.
When we look at people, we shouldn't be looking at the skin color.
I don't know, I feel like racism is really not.
It's a real fact of life. I wish that it wasn't around, but it is.
Or when you just stop doing, period.
It has a place in our society anymore. I think that we just need to get over it.
It's in people's minds, like, they don't express it, and it's such a negative thing that people are affected.
But it just is not scientifically proven. I still think it exists, whether you want to...
The language you use, anything, just be aware of what you're doing.
Who value cherishing differences rather than
Diversity is good, and
Or any judgment that other groups make.
Judge a person on their character, on the inside.
Today, like in our generation, we still see racism.
Definitely overcomes as a society as a whole, but you have to look within yourself in order to see how everyone is equal in their own. Personally, I've been a victim of racism.
we have to do whatever we can to prevent it from.
Feels a certain type of way because of my culture. I'm not gonna let that.
I've seen her kind of go through it from others.
Basically, racism shouldn't be happening at all because everyone.
The intent of people to rid themselves.
they were socialized with certain.
Feeling towards racism is just a neutral.
Wise, socially and economically, I feel like people still have
Beliefs and values. Also, I feel like they're very
As long
resistant.
as people are still afraid to confront their differences.
Definition has changed a lot, and it's
Because we're all the same, just because we don't appear it.
Some other reason, try to get to know them. You know, I would say try to get
People, in order to claim that
But from a moral perspective, I think like
Be proud of who we are, but yet we have to see the many, many more things that we haven't.
just because when I had to write a paper on this too, and I talked about his quote, and so
Highlight on the differences of people
My
rather.
skin's darker than somebody else's does not mean that I'm a different person. We're all basically the same.
It alters the way that we all interact. Outside of Cool Beans 1, do you mind if we ask you a question?
Their race, and I think that racism is just
people not feeling the same way, and
nowadays it's a lot of it's institutionalized, and I feel like we have an environment now that kind of conceals it.
Misconcept like all people of this color as being like this, short people have different skin.
Have these civil liberties, so let's not act like this is something we can do as we please. But you still have these segregated places.
like pulled a prank, but only two of the black guys.
whites against blacks, I guess. I mean, I don't think it's. I think.
Yeah, all I have right now is you guys' two hands. So just.
People view or judge other people. People say that we all have the same rights, the same
people
opportunities.
of color to do certain sports, or allowing people of color to even be
As blatant as it used to be,
but
And I think, honestly, we all come...
that's the first word that comes to mind. Mentally, emotionally, and
About something in my Montserrat class, it was teleological or non-teleological.
you know, like not just against whites and blacks.
It's something that you don't really talk about as much.
You expect it to get better, but when you see it...
A few more hours more, or try to hook him up more, and then you're like, okay, well, he's not doing his job. Why can't my friend get some more hours? What was he doing wrong? Certain teachers, because they grow up in certain places, they're not from the city. And when you're in the city, you're down with different groups of people a lot, so you're used to that. They'll go off what they see on TV, or what the
history of the world we could offer. Hate for the people of different colors or ethnicities.
To me, it's not. People doesn't.
That's why they got rid of it back in the 60s.
Towards cultures, even towards, I guess, orientation too, I guess you can go there. But I don't know, I guess something that like it's always...
It's intensified, and like the more that people talk about racism, like the more.
Back in our social order.
different races or what culturally is so
unique about different races, but
generalize or think something about a group of people. So I think it's in
our society, I feel like the media glorifies racism. Like, if you look at movies, if you look at videos, different racism, stop making assumptions, stop thinking that because I'm Hispanic, I'm like going to be loud or ghetto across the country, not just Holy Cross. Yeah, there's
only affect Black, Hispanic, Mexican, all different races. Racism is a subject that affects everyone. Supporting somebody else in such a racist tone, I was like, you know something? Thank you.
It doesn't just affect Black and Latino people. It affects, you know, all different cultures, all different. Be more comfortable about talking about this.
It affects everybody. It affects the community. It affects how we treat each other.
I haven't really experienced any racism, but I know we need to stop to understand other people, and so they're not.
Let's see, like
I think like racism kind of like stops people from. It's kind of cliche, but stops people from being who they are because
it's terrible.
Yeah, it really like one of the things like we learned in taking a race and ethnic relations class. One of the things we learned is like it's a vicious cycle. So like once
where you always think people are like kind of out to get you because of your minority status and whatnot. And that can have
actually live with like other people of other races.
Like you make new friends with people you aren't really